Hello to everyone. I started a minute early to give a better chance to jump in. I'm just gonna wait a few moments. Hello, Zeno. So, Module 3. Um, in this module, we talked a lot about data privacy, safe apps usage, different e-services, and how to manage them safely. I thought I'd say a few words from our side, from the perspective of creating this module for the MOOC. Something we at first found really hard when we had the initial topics was what different details can we bring out, because cybersecurity is such an overwhelmingly large topic. So I hope you were happy with the choices we made and learned something new. It's always gonna be just just picking of some topics and not a comprehensive list, because really there are so many details. We tried to set the bar at the digital competency level 5 standard as best as we could, but any feedback in that regard would be appreciated. So for this live session, I got the first questions yesterday already from Bert, and he asks, when do you tackle cybersecurity in teaching? Is it possible to deal with it with a student of A0 level? And there's, of course, no short and easy way to answer it. Uh, yes, it should be possible, or rather, it's necessary to deal with it with a student of A0 level, because A0 level in our native language doesn't mean that in the cyber realm, in his or her own native language, he or she already hasn't come across different cyber security issues. Most probably, when one's using devices like computers, tablets, and smartphones, they already have. So the initial contact maybe has been made long ago, and also maybe into cybersecurity topics, but they need to be reminded, uh, and it's always good to go over them. In the case of how to best do it, it all depends on the workshop or lesson plan that you have, how to best accommodate it. But I'd recommend spreading the cyber security topics in before, like starting with a new app, then talking about maybe or showing a couple of specifics in that app's security regards. So not to overwhelm or bore with the security topic, which probably won't be your main focus of the lesson or workshop. Do we have any other questions? So, just to get the feedback, is the audio hearable? Okay. Hello, Cecilia. Do you hear me all right? Oh, okay. Sina already said it's good. Cecilia, do you have any feedback on our module or any questions or maybe some remarks that you would like to add? So Cecilia asks, do you have any suggestion about apps or programs that can manage all one's password? I think uh, in one of the videos when we talk about secure passwords, we actually have a list that are like commonly used. But uh, to be honest, I haven't used all of them to really recommend, but those are the broadly recommended from one of our country's cybersecurity speakers. Hello to SSF. But one thing I think we also talked about it in the video about keeping passwords. So, like to go over it again, firstly, don't use the same password everywhere. And when you're using a password manager, like in Chrome, it's better not to use Google's auto remembering of passwords. And although their auto suggestion, they generate passwords for new accounts and offer them to you. Some those combinations can be pretty efficient, but if you say them in your Google account, then if your Google account falls, then all the accounts fall. So then uh, the Google account is your first and last line of defense in cybersecurity. A lot of people, of course, in actuality, do it because it's easy, it's faster to do it this way. But the more accounts you have, the more sensitive information you have on those accounts, like your credit card info and so on, then the worse it is to lose your Google account. And always remember to have two-step authentication on. But yeah, you can go back to the video and see the list, and I'll go check again. I'm pretty sure I said some examples in the video, but if not, I'll post them in the forum. You're welcome, Cecilia. Yeah, storing passwords automatically, it's the easiest ways, and it's like an overarching theme in today's cyber like everyday personal lives, cybersecurity versus comfort. That uh, some people try to stay in the middle to have some security and some comfort, but they often are opposites of each other in terms of how we interact. Yes, and unlinking sensitive accounts that are already connected to your Google may be a good idea. So, SSF's question: do you find a lot of cultural differences at your school about the topic of security of personal data and privacy? Um, it's not so. Yes, there are some cultural differences, mainly in regards of how much personal info to trust to someone. So we've had some surprises in that regard, like being maybe too trustworthy to us, and then we have to explain that actually in this country and in Europe, the rules about personal information are very strict, and you shouldn't give this out. But more of a security difference we'll see between generations, between users' experiences in terms of how much one has used or gotten used to using technology. Those will always bring differences to the level of knowledge, of security, of anything, comprehending the technology. And hello to Anna. So, Anna, do you have any questions or any feedback or any remarks? Until we wait, just another thought mm, to maybe put forward that a lot of these topics that we went through in this module probably you already knew. That's step one, knowing, and step two, you have maybe at least sometimes used them, but that's the reason that it's good to go over them again and again and to remind yourself how secure you actually are in internet or not, and to take the necessary measures to uh, protect yourself adequately. So SSF says yes, I agree. We find also aging differences. Sometimes older people are extremely suspicious about privacy, even more than needed. I think we should try to make a balance between protecting users and also try on internet the huge opportunities that people can find there. And so it's always a balance. You should try to protect yourself as well as it is necessary. And what's the level of security that is necessary? It's hard to determine. But yeah, definitely, if you talk about security, for some people, you also have to talk about to not be afraid. Like these are the worst case scenarios that might happen if you don't do this. But point one, just to do this simple security measure and just use the opportunities that you have on the web. Don't be afraid, experiment. Hmm. So, Cecilia asks, which errors do you think are the most common beside the password savings, obviously? That's a tough question. Hmm. Um, when I first started talking to colleagues and the different professionals of other areas um, about security, I was really surprised how many people despise like Windows and Android updates, or they don't know what they are for, or they just find them annoying and they don't want to do them, and just in case they'll rather not push on the update button. So that's creating like a systemic cybersecurity issue in your whole operating system. And what else? We talked about locking your smart devices. A lot of people I've seen don't use any password or code or biometric method to lock their phone, even though they have tons and tons of sensitive information on there. Many of them have access like to their bank account, Google account, Facebook account automatically logged in. So you can, if someone steals your phone, one can just change the passwords, take over your account, the bank account's linked to it, use your money until you notice. So yeah, these are like two really basic things: lock your devices and update them for security. I think if I can think of another example of a really common mistake or error, but meantime, you can ask something else if you would like to. So maybe a different kind of, not an actual like security behavior error, but again talking about fears and being afraid and being cautious and over exaggerating it with it. Uh, a lot of this digital media that we consume is more and more going into personalized marketing, and that scares people a lot. So that's why we also in the video showed an example of how you can, like on Facebook, look why some ads are shown to you. It doesn't give all the information, but the more niche ad, the more specifically it has been targeted to you, the more information you can actually get. Why are you seeing this ad? So that's a rather nice counterbalance. Do we have any more feedback or questions? Meantime, I'd like to point out that I must say I myself aren't a cybersecurity expert or teacher, but as my field of teaching includes different technology like laptops and smartphones, uh, I need to include some security topics in my classes and be ready to answer questions about them. So SSF says that it's scary when companies are collecting people's information and we don't know exactly which information. Yeah, that's true to an extent. So the classical joke on the internet, no one has ever read the terms and conditions when signing up for a new account or a new service. Well, actually, in regards of marketing, there are some pointers usually what kind of information they are collecting and how they are using. Also, when going on a website for the first time, you're prompted about the website's cookies, and and you also from there can be linked to that that web page's security details and privacy uh, statements, which at least in some regards will address how they use information. And also the Facebook example I gave, um, as I work myself in marketing and also target ads to our students, I don't find it as scary because maybe I know a bit more of how it works. It's not so insidious as it might seem. It usually isn't, but of course there are always some bad agents that or actors or companies or however you name them that take maliciously the information that they have collected. There's always a threat of that. Yeah, Paula remarks that maybe companies could post the terms and conditions in an easy reading way. Yes, that would be lovely, but it's comfortable for them. The harder it is for you to read, the less you can complain. That's part of the free market, that until there's a rule not to do so, they are able to do so. Maybe a parallel from Estonia that a couple of years ago, We had a real big movement from some of the state officials and ministers to at least on the national level and the local municipality level to make documents that are very important for people to read in like translated into normal language, not all this legal language. Yeah, and then addition with graphics or something like that. Yeah, graphics are always good. As a designer, I can say that whatever way you use data visualization, when it is effective, it makes consuming information so much more enjoyable. And Paula also says, also it makes you think that they are hiding something. What do you think? So I'm guessing you're referring to the companies that post extremely difficult to read terms and conditions. Yes, sometimes they are, but sometimes, as you know, while legal language is so complicated on the internet and otherwise, is because uh, they want to avoid misreading them. So, from one legal counselor or lawyer to another, they can perfectly understand and can't misrepresent or misread or or determine their intent maliciously. Sylvia asks, do you use these documents also with migrants in your classes? What documents are you referring to? Like our privacy statements, or could you please maybe elaborate on that point? Oh, yeah, it's not in document form when we explain in class. So if we are collecting information, like overall in our school, not only with the migrants, when we are collecting like email addresses and signatures, then always on the exact paper we will have an easy to understand explanation for what we are collecting this information for and how we are using it. And so for like signing up to our courses, it's just to have all the necessary information to firstly contact them if needed, and to have the end diploma of the course with the information that is needed for it to be legally acceptable. So, any more feedback or questions? Oh, Sylvia, was that answer sufficient enough? Okay, that was enough. And thank you, Silvia, for asking it. So we're almost at the half hour mark. Any last questions or remarks? I'll just wait a few more moments to see if we have something else to answer. So I think this is all for the live session. Thank you all for joining me. And if later today you'll have a question pop in your mind and darn, why didn't I ask it right then? Then go to the forum of this module, post it there. I will try to give my best answers, and I will be active there. So don't be afraid to ask. Thank you all. Goodbye.